She was the last human princess, and the first to break the cycle. Towering structures of dark metal and crystal stretched endlessly in all directions, lit by the pale glow of distant stars. For most inhabitants, this city was a monument to order and perfection. For Lyra, it was a cage. She paused at a corner, pressing her hand against the cold wall to steady herself. Her heart pounded in her chest, not from fear, but from the weight of a truth she carried alone. She was the last human princess. In a galaxy where her people were considered extinct, her existence was a secret carefully guarded since childhood. Her survival was her family's final gift to the universe, a single spark of humanity hiding in plain sight. Lyra's life was a careful balance between invisibility and curiosity. By day, she posed as a scholar, studying alien texts and artifacts in the city's grand library. By night, she delved into the hidden corners of human history, reading fragments of old stories, piecing together tales of a species that had once been masters of ingenuity and resilience. Every discovery made her heart ache with both pride and sorrow. Humanity had been vibrant, brilliant, and relentless, but they had fallen, crushed under cycles of conquest and repetition that spanned centuries. Tonight, however, her quiet routine was about to change. The library's main hall stretched before her, a vast chamber filled with towering shelves that glowed faintly with embedded light. Lyra moved toward a secluded alcove, her footsteps silent on the polished floor. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small, ancient device she had uncovered months ago. It was human, though unlike anything she had ever seen described in the texts. A compact sphere etched with unfamiliar symbols that seemed to pulse faintly with life. Lyra's fingers trembled as she activated it. The device emitted a soft hum, and a holographic projection sprang to life above it. She gasped. The image showed a cycle, an endless repetition of conquest and collapse across countless worlds. Entire civilizations rising, thriving, and then being destroyed by the same forces over and over. And in each cycle, humanity appeared briefly, only to vanish again. Her mind raced. The cycle wasn't random, it was deliberate. Someone or something was guiding history in this cruel loop, and now the cycle was about to repeat. A sudden vibration under her feet startled Lyra. The library's doors opened with a soft hiss, and two figures in sleek silver armor entered. They were part of the Alien Enforcers, a group dedicated to maintaining order and preserving the traditions of the cycle. Lyra froze, knowing she could not be seen. She ducked behind a towering shelf, her breath shallow. The enforcers spoke in low, melodic tones, their words strange but tinged with authority. The sequence begins tonight, all preparations complete. The next stage of the cycle will be executed. Lyra's stomach turned. The next stage of the cycle, whatever it was, would devastate worlds. She had no choice but to act, but acting openly would mean revealing herself. And once she revealed herself, there would be no turning back. She waited until the enforcers left, then slipped out from her hiding place. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each more urgent than the last. She needed allies, she needed knowledge, and she needed a plan. Most of all, she needed to understand the cycle fully. The following days were a blur of research and observation. Lyra pored over texts, scanned holograms, and studied maps of countless star systems. She discovered that the cycle had touched nearly every corner of the galaxy, sparing only a few isolated worlds. One such world, a lush, untouched planet called Urindor, was next. Lyra knew instinctively that she had to reach it before the cycle's forces did. Yet the journey to Urindor would not be simple. Travel outside the city was strictly monitored, and she had no ship of her own. Worse, she could not trust anyone openly. Even minor missteps could lead to her discovery and the loss of humanity's last hope. Lyra spent nights walking among the city's lower levels, observing the everyday lives of the aliens who believed themselves superior. She watched their patterns, their routines, and their weaknesses. Though powerful, they were predictable in ways that only an outsider could notice. One particular observation gave her hope. In every faction, no matter how rigid, there were those who longed for change, who doubted the cycle, who quietly resisted authority. These were potential allies. One evening, Lyra ventured into a market district beneath the spire. The air was thick with the scent of alien spices and the glow of bioluminescent lanterns. She moved among the crowd, her hood pulled low, her eyes scanning for signs of those who might help her. And then she saw it, a small emblem pinned to a merchant's robe, a symbol she had seen in her research. It marked someone sympathetic to humanity's ideals, a remnant of old alliances long thought broken. She approached cautiously. "I believe you understand what the cycle is," she said softly, leaning close. The merchant's eyes widened, and after a tense moment, he nodded. "Then you are brave or foolish," he whispered. "Either way, you must see what you carry with your own eyes." He led her to a hidden chamber beneath the market. There, Lyra saw artifacts from countless civilizations that had suffered under the cycle. She saw inventions, art, and texts, all preserved carefully by those who refused to let history be erased. And in the center of the room lay a device identical to her own, a twin sphere, human-made, humming with energy. Together, Lyra and the merchant activated both devices. A holographic map of the galaxy unfolded before them, showing the paths of destruction that the cycle would take next. Lyra's pulse quickened as she realized the stakes. If the cycle completed, countless worlds would fall. And she, the last human princess, was the only one with the knowledge and determination to stop it. Days passed in planning. Lyra learned to move through the city undetected, to avoid enforcers, and to decipher alien technology. She began forming the outlines of a strategy, relying on ingenuity, observation, and the few trusted allies she could find. Every moment carried danger, but every moment also carried hope. She could feel humanity's spark stirring within her, bright and persistent despite the weight of history. One night, as Lyra returned to her hidden study, she felt the device in her hands pulse more strongly than ever. A holographic image appeared, larger and more detailed. It showed the city she lived in now, the alien enforcers, and beyond them the untouched planet Urindor. A voice, faint and mechanical, echoed through the projection. "Next target, Urindor. Intervention required." Lyra's heart surged. She had the knowledge, she had the will, and she had a purpose. The cycle would not continue, not if she could help it. Humanity's legacy would survive, and this time it would not be a brief spark lost to history. She would break the cycle. She would prove that humans were more than survivors. They were innovators, leaders, and bearers of hope. That night, Lyra stood atop the spire, looking out across the city, the stars beyond, and the endless possibilities that lay before her. She felt the weight of her ancestors pressing upon her shoulders, but she also felt their strength flowing through her veins. She was alone, yes, but she was not powerless, and somewhere deep inside she smiled. For the first time, she realized that being the last human princess was not a curse. It was a responsibility, a challenge, and a chance to change everything. Lyra turned back toward her study, her mind already racing with plans, routes, and strategies. The cycle would come, as it always did, but this time humanity would be ready. And with that thought, she knew her journey had truly begun. The galaxy was vast, the obstacles enormous, and the enforcers vigilant, but Lyra was ready. The last human princess would not merely survive. She would fight, she would inspire, and she would break the cycle that had bound civilizations for centuries. The market was quieter than usual that evening, but Lyra did not mind. She had learned to move through the city like a shadow, unnoticed by the enforcers and the citizens alike. Every step she took was measured, every glance deliberate. She could feel the weight of the twin human artifacts in her satchel, the devices that would guide her to Urindor and help her understand the cycle that threatened countless worlds. Her first task was to find allies. She could not hope to confront the cycle alone. Even if she was the last human princess, her strength lay not only in her own knowledge and courage, but also in the support of those willing to see beyond the lies of the enforcers. The merchant who had first shown her the hidden chamber met her in the shadows of a side street. His name was Kale, a wiry figure with quick hands and a mind that ran faster than most. He had contacts in various alien factions, those who were dissatisfied with the rigid order that the cycle imposed. "You're ready," Kale said, his voice low. "But do not forget, many will not trust you. A human princess is a myth to most. Even here in this city, your very name could spark fear." Lyra nodded. "Then we show them proof. We show them what the cycle does and what we can prevent." Her voice was steady, but inside, a storm of nerves raged. She had spent her life in hiding. Now she would step into the galaxy and demand attention, not as a scholar, but as a leader. Kale led her to a network of underground tunnels, hidden beneath the city. There they met with representatives of several alien factions, beings of every shape, color, and size, each marked by the struggles of their people. Some were hesitant, others openly skeptical. The moment Lyra stepped forward, murmurs ran through the room. "I am Lyra," she said, standing tall despite the rapid beat of her heart. "I am the last human princess. I have knowledge of the cycle that governs this galaxy. If we do not act, countless worlds will fall. Including yours." A pause followed her words. She could see the doubt in their eyes, the disbelief. But she also saw curiosity and perhaps the faint spark of hope. One of the leaders, a tall alien with skin that shimmered like liquid metal, spoke. "And why should we trust a human? Your people are extinct. My people have survived through strategy, not myths." Lyra held her gaze. "Because myths are the seeds of truth, because the cycle does not discriminate. Because your survival depends on choices, not on waiting for inevitability." Kale stepped forward, activating the devices she had brought. The room filled with light as holographic images of worlds being destroyed flashed in sequence. Entire civilizations rose, thrived, and vanished in moments, all orchestrated by the same invisible hand. Even the most skeptical eyes could not deny the evidence. The tall alien's gaze softened. "This is why you are here, not merely to speak, but to act." "Yes," Lyra said. "But we must act quickly. The next stage of the cycle is already in motion. If we wait, Urindor will fall before we even arrive." Over the following days, the small coalition prepared. Lyra learned to communicate in the nuances of alien strategy, to navigate complex hierarchies, and to plan with precision. She discovered strengths in her allies she had never anticipated. A pilot who could traverse impossible star currents, a technician who could manipulate energy flows, and a diplomat who could sway factions through words alone. Each member of the coalition became a vital part of her plan. Lyra also learned patience. She could not move openly, she could not reveal her full capabilities too soon. Every meeting had to be secret, every action calculated. The enforcers were relentless, and the city itself seemed to watch, waiting for any sign of deviation. During one particularly tense meeting, Kale spoke urgently. "We've traced patrol routes. If we leave tonight, we have a window before they discover our absence. But the path is dangerous. You will need to lead from the front." Lyra's pulse quickened. She had expected this, but knowing it did not lessen the weight. She looked at the faces around her, strangers who had become her allies, each relying on her judgment, each willing to follow a myth for the sake of survival. "We leave," she said finally, her voice firm. "We will reach Urindor, and we will show the galaxy that the cycle can be broken." The journey through the stars was not simple. The coalition navigated asteroid fields, evaded patrols, and relied on the ingenuity of Lyra's human heritage to overcome challenges the enforcers would never anticipate. She discovered a joy she had not felt since childhood, the thrill of problem-solving, the satisfaction of seeing a plan succeed, and the unspoken bond forming with her companions. One night, while the fleet rested in a hidden nebula, Lyra gazed out at the stars. "Why do you follow me?" she asked softly, addressing no one in particular. The diplomat, a being with translucent wings that reflected starlight, spoke. "Because we have seen the destruction before, because you carry knowledge, courage, and the willingness to act. You remind us that survival is not enough. We can change the future." Lyra smiled faintly. It was a small comfort, but it gave her hope. She realized that humanity's strength was not in numbers or technology, but in determination, adaptability, and the belief that change was possible. As they approached the outer systems near Urindor, the first real signs of the cycle's influence became visible. Worlds on the brink of collapse were already being manipulated, and structures of control reminiscent of ancient patterns appeared in orbit around several planets. Lyra felt a chill of recognition. This was the same force that had ended humanity once. And it would not hesitate to strike again. Their arrival at Urindor was tense. The planet was untouched, lush with forests and oceans that reflected the starlight, but beneath its serene surface, Lyra could sense the beginnings of the cycle's interference. Structures had been placed around the planet, ready to enforce control and bring it into the same doomed pattern she had witnessed countless times. Lyra convened her coalition. "We must act carefully. If the enforcers detect us, the cycle will begin immediately. But if we succeed, Urindor can serve as a model for the galaxy. This is our chance." Kale nodded. "We can do this. We trust your lead." The plan was precise. Lyra and her team divided responsibilities. reconnaissance, disruption of control systems, negotiation with any local factions, and preparation for potential retaliation. Every move required skill, courage, and intuition. And in every step, Lyra drew upon the lessons of human history, the art of strategy, the power of empathy, and the resilience to adapt when the unexpected occurred. On the night before their final approach, Lyra could not sleep. She walked the corridors of their hidden base, the twin spheres of human design glowing softly beside her. She activated one, watching the holographic map of Urindor and the surrounding systems. Each projection of the cycle's machinery was a reminder of the stakes. She was alone in her understanding, alone in her burden, but not alone in action. The allies who trusted her were proof that the spark of humanity could ignite courage in others. As the first light of a distant sun touched Urindor's surface, Lyra felt a determination stronger than she had ever known. She was not merely fighting for survival, she was fighting for the future. For the first time, she felt that humanity's legacy could endure, not as a fleeting myth, but as a guiding force across the stars. The next day, the coalition moved into position. Lyra led from the front, her presence a rallying point for her allies. As they executed the initial steps of their plan, Lyra felt a thrill of anticipation. Every obstacle, every challenge, every risk was a test of their resolve, and a chance to demonstrate that the cycle was not inevitable. The enforcers soon noticed their intrusion. Drones patrolled the outer atmosphere, scanning for signs of interference. Lyra had anticipated this. Using a combination of cunning, speed, and the coalition's diverse skills, they evaded detection, disabling monitoring systems and slipping into Urindor's orbit. Inside the planet's atmosphere, Lyra could see untouched forests, rivers glittering under the sun, and cities yet unformed. This world was innocent, pure, and brimming with potential. She understood more clearly than ever that the cycle sought to snuff out such possibilities. And she would not allow it. As they established a base hidden within the planet's northern forests, Lyra reflected on the journey so far. From the secret halls of the obsidian spire to the hidden chambers beneath the market, through alliances forged in secrecy and trust, she had learned that leadership was more than commanding. It was inspiring, adapting, and taking responsibility for decisions that affected countless lives. She also understood the stakes more clearly than ever. The cycle was not just a pattern of destruction, it was a test of will, a challenge to civilizations to rise above repetition. And humanity, in its last representative, was ready to answer that challenge. Lyra stood atop a hill overlooking their base as dusk fell. The sky shimmered with alien constellations, the wind carrying the scent of Urindor's forests. She felt the hum of the planet, the pulse of life unbroken by conquest. Somewhere in her chest, a spark of pride and determination ignited. Humanity's story was far from over. She would see to that herself. The cycle was coming, but this time it would meet resistance. This time the galaxy would learn that humans were not merely survivors. They were innovators, leaders, and the ones who could change history. And Lyra, the last human princess, would lead the way. The northern forests of Urindor were alive with quiet energy. Birds with luminous feathers darted between the trees, and the wind carried the scent of flowering plants that shimmered faintly under the light of the planet's twin suns. Lyra stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking their hidden base. The air was cool, but her mind burned with anticipation. Today was the day they would begin the next phase, confronting the cycle itself. Lyra's allies moved with precision beneath her. Kale coordinated the security perimeter, ensuring that no drones or patrols could detect them. The diplomat, whose translucent wings reflected the sun, communicated with local factions, explaining that their presence was for protection, not conquest. The technician adjusted energy shields around the base, ready to block any automated defenses the cycle might trigger. Lyra activated the twin human devices. The spheres hummed and projected a holographic map of the region. She traced the paths of the cycle's machinery, invisible lines of influence connecting distant star systems, orbiting platforms that would impose control over Urindor, and satellites designed to manipulate the planet's environment. The pattern was intricate, deliberate, and terrifying. "It's more complex than I imagined," Kale said, studying the projections. "But I see the weak points. You always said humans were clever, Lyra. I think this is why." Lyra nodded. Cleverness is not just about solving problems. It's about seeing connections others miss and acting when others hesitate. The cycle relies on repetition, but humans, we change. Their plan was simple in principle, but difficult in execution. They would infiltrate the control nodes placed in orbit above Urindor, disable the mechanisms enforcing the cycle, and establish a human-guided system that would allow the planet to grow freely. Each step was dangerous. Detection could lead to total failure and alert the enforcers, who would descend in force. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra prepared her team. They moved swiftly through the forest, cloaked by the dense foliage and by the shadows cast by the two moons. She led the way, her hand occasionally brushing against the hilt of a small energy tool, something she had adapted from human technology, designed not to harm but to disable. Hours later, they reached the outermost control node. It hovered silently above the forest, a sleek sphere of dark metal inscribed with alien symbols. Lyra studied it, noting the energy field surrounding it. "We cannot rush," she whispered. "The cycle is patient, but we can be faster." The technician stepped forward, his hands moving over a console projected from the node. "I can bypass the shields," he said, "but it will take careful timing. One mistake and the system will alert the enforcers." Lyra nodded. "Do it. We'll cover you." As the technician worked, Lyra and Kale watched the horizon. Tiny dots of light blinked in the distance, patrol drones scanning for anomalies. Every pulse of light sent a jolt of tension through Lyra's body. She had trained for this moment, but fear was unavoidable. It was part of being human, part of being alive. Finally, the shields blinked and disappeared. The technician exhaled and Lyra stepped forward. Using the human device, she interfaced with the control node. The symbols on the sphere shifted and glowed under her touch. She could feel the cycle's machinery resisting her, a subtle pressure in her mind as if the system itself was aware of her actions. "This is it," she said. "We change history now." Lines of energy traced across the holographic map as Lyra worked. She rerouted systems, disconnected the nodes from the cycle, and created a new framework that allowed the planet's growth without interference. The process was delicate. One misstep could trigger alarms, one wrong input could collapse the entire structure. Time seemed to stretch. Minutes felt like hours, and every movement of the hands, every pulse of the spheres, carried enormous weight. Lyra's mind raced, analyzing, calculating, predicting. She remembered the stories of human ancestors, how they had survived impossible odds through ingenuity and courage. That history was alive in her fingers now, guiding her every action. Suddenly, an alarm blared faintly in the distance. A drone had detected a minor anomaly. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. "Kale, intercept it," she said. "Distract it, keep it away from the node." Kale moved swiftly, drawing the drone away with a combination of holographic decoys and rapid maneuvers. Lyra returned her focus to the node, steadying herself. The hum of the spheres grew louder, as if the devices themselves were straining under the weight of the task. Finally, with a last precise adjustment, the node blinked once, then settled into a stable state. Lyra's chest tightened with relief. "It's done," she whispered. "The cycle is broken here." The team cheered softly, but Lyra did not smile. There was no time for celebration. The cycle extended beyond this planet, beyond these nodes. She had disrupted one part, but the greater challenge remained. The central nexus, the heart of the cycle that controlled countless worlds. As the first light of dawn touched the forest, Lyra gathered her allies. "We've succeeded here," she said, "but the next stage is the nexus. If we fail there, everything we've done could be undone. We must prepare." The diplomat stepped forward. "The nexus is heavily guarded. Even if we reach it, the enforcers will be waiting." Lyra nodded. "Then we rely on what makes humans strong. Strategy, adaptation, and courage. We will not rush blindly. We will observe, learn, and act with precision." Over the next days, the coalition trained, studied, and planned. Lyra became more than a leader. She was the heart of their mission, a symbol of hope and determination. She encouraged her allies, taught them to think creatively, and reminded them that their goal was not merely survival but the rewriting of history. One evening, as they gathered around a holographic map, the technician pointed to a distant system. "This is the central nexus. All cycles originate here. It's the core control station. Everything we've seen, the destruction, the enforcement, the repetition, it comes from this place." Lyra's eyes narrowed. Then we go there, but carefully, every step must be calculated. The Nexus is the test of everything humanity represents. Kale frowned. Do you think we can succeed? Lyra looked at him, her eyes steady. We must. There is no other choice. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for countless civilizations and for humanity's place in the galaxy. If humans can break this cycle, we prove that change is possible, that survival is not enough, and that courage can overcome repetition. The diplomat nodded slowly. Then we follow you, whatever it takes. As the team prepared for the journey to the Nexus, Lyra took a moment alone, activating the human device. The spheres pulsed, projecting visions of civilizations rising and falling, some in chaos, others in quiet obedience. She saw patterns, connections, and subtle deviations that humans could exploit. She traced them with her fingers, imagining new paths for the galaxy. Lyra understood now that the cycle was not invincible. It relied on complacency, on repetition, on the belief that change was impossible. Humans in their history had always challenged the impossible. They had survived floods, wars, and collapses not through strength alone, but through adaptation, creativity, and resilience. That history flowed in her now. She was not alone. She carried the legacy of an entire species. When the preparations were complete, the coalition departed from Urindor. Their small fleet moved through the stars with purpose, each member focused on the mission. Lyra led from the front, her presence a reminder of why they fought. Every system they passed reminded her of the stakes, the countless worlds caught in the cycle, waiting for a chance to break free. As they approached the outer defenses of the Nexus, tension ran high. Drones and automated defenses scanned the void, and Lyra's pulse matched their rhythm. She studied the patterns, predicting patrols and identifying weak points. With careful timing, they slipped past the first layers of defense, each maneuver guided by human intuition and alien skill. Lyra felt a thrill she had not known in years. The cycle itself was testing them, and they were meeting the challenge. Each success built confidence, each small victory strengthened their resolve. But Lyra knew the greatest challenge awaited. The Nexus itself, the heart of the cycle, would not yield easily. As the fleet hovered in the shadow of the Nexus, Lyra gathered her team one last time. "This is it," she said. "The core. Every step we take now will define the future. We must be precise, we must be brave, and we must act as humans always have, together, resilient, and ready to change the impossible." The allies nodded, determination shining in their eyes. Lyra felt a surge of hope. The Nexus was formidable, but they were ready. Humanity in its last princess was not waiting for fate, it was shaping it. And Lyra knew, deep in her heart, that the cycle would meet its first true challenge. And for the first time, it might fail. The central Nexus loomed ahead, a massive structure of dark metal and glowing energy fields that seemed to stretch endlessly into space. Its surface pulsed with the rhythm of countless cycles, a heartbeat that had governed civilizations for centuries. Lyra's fleet hovered at a safe distance, the human devices in her hands casting faint light across the bridge of her ship. Every system around the Nexus was alive with energy, almost as if the structure itself could sense their approach. Lyra's heart beat steadily. She had trained for this moment. She had studied, planned, and guided her allies through countless challenges. But the Nexus was unlike anything she had seen. It was the center of the cycle, the hub of control that had erased entire civilizations. And now it awaited her. Kale, standing beside her, placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're ready, Lyra. Whatever happens, we trust you." Lyra nodded. "And I trust all of you. Remember, the cycle relies on fear and repetition. We change both by acting with courage and wisdom. Stay focused. Follow my lead." The fleet moved into position, carefully avoiding the outer defenses. Automated drones patrolled the perimeter, but Lyra's predictions of their patterns allowed the coalition to slip past. The tension was electric, every flicker of light or pulse of energy carrying potential danger. As they approached the main entry point, the Nexus responded. A wave of energy shot outward, scanning the area for intruders. Lyra raised her hand, activating the human devices. The spheres pulsed in harmony, projecting a shield of interference that disrupted the Nexus's detection systems. Slowly, cautiously, they moved closer, each second stretching into an eternity. Finally, they reached the core chamber. The Nexus's interior was a cathedral of light and metal, a vast network of control nodes suspended in zero gravity. Streams of energy flowed along invisible channels, connecting countless planets and systems in a lattice of influence. Lyra could see it all: the paths of destruction, the repetitions, the invisible lines that had controlled civilizations for generations. "This is it," she whispered, "the heart of the cycle." Her allies spread out, securing the perimeter and preparing their tools. Lyra floated toward the central node, the largest and most intricate of them all. It pulsed with energy, reacting to her presence as if aware of her purpose. She reached out, placing her hands on the surface, and the human device interfaced with the node. The symbols shifted and glowed, responding to her touch. The Nexus resisted. Lines of energy lanced out, trying to push her back, but Lyra held firm. She focused, tracing the connections in her mind, rerouting control channels, and disconnecting systems that had enforced the cycle for centuries. Every adjustment had to be precise. One mistake could collapse the entire network or trigger an automatic reset that would erase her progress. Minutes passed like hours. Lyra's fingers moved over the interface, her mind analyzing patterns, predicting reactions, and making adjustments with human ingenuity and creativity. She could feel the pulse of the Nexus slowing, its resistance weakening. The cycle was faltering. Suddenly, a surge of energy lashed out from the core, forcing her to step back. A protective barrier activated, closing off part of the chamber. Lyra's heart raced. The Nexus was fighting back, trying to maintain the pattern, to preserve the repetition that had defined the galaxy for so long. Kale shouted from the side, "We'll hold it! Focus on the core!" Lyra nodded, her determination hardening. She remembered the lessons of human history, the persistence in the face of overwhelming odds, the courage to act when failure seemed certain. She focused on the central node, finding a rhythm in the flow of energy, a subtle weakness hidden within the system. With a final series of adjustments, she rerouted the control channels, redirecting energy flows and neutralizing the mechanisms that enforced repetition. The Nexus pulsed violently one last time, then began to stabilize. Slowly, deliberately, the lattice of influence unraveled, connections fading, patterns breaking. Lyra exhaled, a wave of relief washing over her. The cycle was broken, not just on Urindor, not just in her immediate surroundings, but across countless systems that had been bound by repetition. For the first time in generations, the galaxy could choose its own path. Her allies cheered softly, their faces reflecting awe and relief. Kale came forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Lyra, you actually did it." Lyra shook her head slightly, a smile forming on her lips. "We did it, all of us together. Humanity did it." The diplomat stepped closer, wings catching the light. "The cycle, it's over. Entire systems will be free. Countless civilizations will have a chance to grow without interference, and it is because of you." Lyra looked around at her allies, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. She realized then that being the last human princess was not about survival alone. It was about responsibility, leadership, and the courage to act when the odds seemed insurmountable. Humanity's legacy was not defined by defeat, but by the ability to inspire change and protect the potential of life. The central node began to hum softly, its energy stabilizing. Lyra reached out, placing her hand on the surface once more. Images of civilizations flashed before her eyes, worlds rising, thriving, free from the cycle's control. She felt hope radiating from every corner of the galaxy, a promise that history could be rewritten. "Lyra," Kale said, "what happens now?" She took a deep breath, looking at the stars visible through the Nexus's transparent walls. "Now we guide the future. We help civilizations rebuild, share knowledge, and learn from each other. We ensure that the cycle never returns." Her allies nodded. The task ahead was enormous, but for the first time, it was a task they could approach with freedom and choice. No longer bound by repetition, they could create a galaxy defined not by control, but by collaboration, innovation, and hope. As the coalition prepared to leave the Nexus, Lyra activated the human devices one final time. The spheres pulsed brightly, projecting a network of guidance across the galaxy. Systems once bound by the cycle would now receive information, resources, and coordination to prevent repetition and support growth. Humanity's wisdom, long thought lost, would become a guiding force. Lyra paused, taking in the magnitude of what had been accomplished. She thought of her ancestors, of the humans who had built, explored, and persevered. Their legacy had survived in her, and now it would live across the stars, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of her people. The fleet departed from the Nexus, moving back toward Urindor. The planet greeted them with the soft light of morning, forests untouched, rivers sparkling, and life continuing freely. Lyra felt a sense of peace she had never known in the centuries of hiding. The galaxy was alive, full of potential, and for the first time humanity had a place in shaping its destiny. Kale came to stand beside her on the observation deck of their flagship. "Do you think they'll believe us?" he asked, gesturing toward the stars. "The other civilizations, that humans can lead without domination," Lyra smiled. "They'll see the results, not just our words. Humanity's strength is not in power, but in ideas, in courage, and in the ability to inspire. Once they see that, they will follow. And they will continue what we've started." The diplomat landed lightly beside her, wings folding neatly. "And you, what will you do, Lyra? You have changed everything." Lyra gazed out at the galaxy, the stars stretching endlessly. "I will continue to guide, to teach, and to protect. But more importantly, I will ensure that the spark of humanity spreads, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as partners in creating a better future." The team shared a quiet moment of reflection, knowing the work ahead would be challenging but rewarding. For the first time, the galaxy was free to grow, to explore, and to thrive without the weight of repetition pressing down upon it. And humanity, through Lyra, had taken its rightful place as a guiding force. As the flagship soared through the stars, Lyra activated the spheres one final time, sending a pulse of light and energy that rippled across the galaxy. Worlds that had been caught in the cycle began to stabilize, life flourishing where it had been constrained, and new possibilities unfolding. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of fulfillment and hope. She had broken the cycle, not with violence or fear, but with ingenuity, courage, and leadership. Humanity's legacy was no longer a memory. It was a living, shining presence in the galaxy. And as she looked out into the endless expanse of stars, Lyra knew that the future was theirs to shape. Not just hers, not just her allies, but the countless civilizations who would now have the freedom to rise, to learn, and to thrive. For the first time in countless generations, the galaxy had a choice. And humanity, through its last princess, had ensured that choice would always remain. Lyra smiled, a quiet determination in her eyes. The cycle had ended. A new era had begun. And she, the last human princess, would guide humanity and the galaxy into a future defined not by repetition, but by hope, courage, and endless possibility. The stars stretched endlessly before her, bright and full of potential. And Lyra knew without doubt that humanity's story had only just begun. She was the last human princess, and the first to break the cycle,